Clackamas Township regular monthly meeting, March 17th, 2015, testing.
I think you called somebody. Called somebody.
Mayor.
Oh, you called the mayor?
No, he had no reactions. Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Good one?
Yes.
All right, I will call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Express Times and Star Gazette, satisfying the Open Public Meeting Act. If we could please stand for a silent prayer and flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first order of business will be a brief executive session that will not last more than 30 to 45 minutes. It involves contractual and potential litigation. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, Becker,
Yes.
Swack,
Yes.
Van Loo, yes, Angeli,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes, okay. He's here. I hear you. Do you want to, when we,
One?
Yeah.
Just one bit?
when we go back in, you just want to explain people's own? Okay. All right, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, Kevin.
To recapitulate for the public, and we apologize, but we had our insurance defense counsel here who gets paid by the hour. So we wanted to get her in and out of here. And it was an executive session outside of the public, under the Open Public Meetings Act, because it is a litigation, a pending litigation. It's the litigation with our clerk. And our insurance defense counsel gave the mayor and council some legal advice with regard to what direction to go with the case. The mayor and council gave our attorney feedback, and she's now left the building with that feedback, and we'll see where the litigation goes. So that's where we were, and sorry it took 45 minutes, but that's what happens when I guess you have lawyers talking about settlements and litigation. Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. Next item, I guess we'll just adjust this and do the bid opening for the lawn mowing service, just so we can be as close to 7:30 as possible.
I'm looking at one bid. Looks like Total Lawn Care and Landscape Services LLC. These are the same people?
Current people, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bother with checking for legal compliance. I can do that while you guys are doing other things. But it's a lump sum bid, $16,500. I don't know where that stands as far as last year. And then there are some per cut. Looks like it's $325 on an extra per cut basis for every other park. So that's the bid. We keep this particular bid, we keep pretty simple. Just glancing through it, it looks like, and he's done this before, it looks like it's a conforming bid. So if you guys want to take action now to accept the bid, subject to attorney review, you can do that, or not. We have 60 days to make the award.
So we could award at the next meeting.
You can award next meeting
Okay.
if you want.
There was some discussion
Wait a
with
minute.
Sal. There was some discussion that neighboring municipalities, if we go in together, we may be able to get a bulk rate
To
first
rebid.
to rebid. So I think we maybe just explore that before we accept. That would just be my suggestion on that.
By statute, we have 60 days to accept or reject. So if you guys want to table for a week or two to see if anybody else is going out, it's up to you guys.
Concerning that bid, I want this, the guy we award the contract to report to the office when he starts and when he stops.
Would that to
We
be,
can keep better tabs on him. I
Well,
don't think he's cutting it every week.
We can probably, the contract that we use is pretty pro forma, has been for the last few years, but we can certainly build that into it, Sal. But it sounds like we're tabling the,
Do you need a motion to table it?
I would say motion.
Okay, I'll move we table it to the next meeting.
Next meeting or 2 meetings away?
Let's do it to this next meeting, the second
You
meeting.
can do it again. if we're not-
Okay, that's fine.
I say that's only 2 weeks, though, basically.
Yeah, we'll do a month
We're
then.
doing it till April 7th?
Yeah.
That's not.
No, the
Second meeting.
second meeting in April.
Greg usually lets them just start knowing that.
Well, too bad.
So we're tabling it till the second meeting in April?
Yeah, I mean,
Jay Becker,
Yes.
Slack,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Angeli,
Yes.
Kern.
yes, okay. Do I have a motion to pay the bills presented in proper form, signed by the director of each department and approved by the majority of the member listed on the bill list?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Becker,
Yes.
Slack,
Yes.
Andrew,
Okay, I know I signed all my bills, so I'll say yes.
Angeli,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
How about the minutes, ma'am?
Oh, sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 20th meeting? Are there any abstentions from that, Wanda?
No.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Jay Becker,
Yes.
Slack,
Yes.
Andrew, Angeli,
Yes.
Kern.
Yes. Okay, public comment pertaining to agenda items. This is for public comment on agenda items. If there are any, please come up, speak into the microphone and identify yourself.
Bill Ortel, Pocahontas, 302 Bliss Boulevard. Regarding the lawn maintenance, if you wait 60 days or if it goes into April, the fields might not be cut in time for baseball season,
Okay.
softball season, so I don't know. But, it's always been a problem because the grass does grow pretty quickly. Spring kick.
Okay.
There's nothing preventing us, by the way.
We can take action
We
early.
can take action
Yeah.
at the
Okay.
next meeting too, if we'd like. So we tabled it for a month, but at this point, since it's been open in the public, if nothing else looks like it's percolating, we could make it.
All right, okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda items? If you have a comment, you have to please come up.
Hi, my name's Tony Catanzaro, 102 Victory Avenue. I'm a professional landscaper for the past 30 years, and who's ever doing the parks, it's a joke. Never mind checking how long they're there. How about somebody quality check the cut? Nobody weed whacks. They don't show up every week, I agree with you. He cuts at like 5 miles an hour. I've watched him. They need to do a quality job for $16,000. So I don't know if there's somebody that can watch the quality of the work for the money being spent, but the guy that you're hiring is not even from the area. Preferable to get somebody that's local. That's a shame. That's really a shame. You don't even know if you're getting a good price then. I don't work in this area, so it's not my thing, but I can just tell you that the cut quality is atrocious, and I've been out there where the kids are playing in grass this long, so it's obviously not getting cut. So somebody needs to watch this company or whoever does it on a weekly basis for quality and for showing up. Just coming into the office and saying I cut the grass, I don't think is adequate. Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda items?
Trish Becker. I'd actually like to make a comment about public comment tonight. I'd like to make the observation that we've got quite a few residents and town employees here tonight. I think that's wonderful. And they may be not used to coming to these meetings, and I wanted to understand and have you make it clear to them whether or not they'd be able to comment after the different presentations, for example, the police presentation, will they be allowed to ask questions and get answers? Also, after the budget discussion, will they be allowed to ask questions and get answers? Because the only other opportunity for them to make public comment is item 20, which is after everything is over, pretty much. So I was wondering if you could answer that question, not just for me, but for everyone in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so everyone is aware, it is public comment, so everyone is given an opportunity to once make a comment, and we ask that you try to keep it within 5 minutes. You'll have an opportunity to speak after everything has been presented tonight, and if there's not, we'd like that you speak entirely while you're up here, and then we will, if able, answer any questions you may have when you're done speaking. So just to clarify how public comment works.
Just so they know.
Yeah.
It's not after every.
Yeah, it's not after every, it's one comment at the end. Is there any other public comment? Yes. You're going to have to come up to the, I'm sorry.
I don't know if this is about mowing the grass or anything, but I live on Shackletown Road. My name is Shirley Quarter. My concern is the train that comes by that has that oil in it. I'm only 100 feet from that track. Does the town have any kind of thing for if something happens with that train? I mean, Pennsylvania is already looking into it because they've had like 15 derailments with that oil, and it's very explosive. And I don't want to go to bed one night and not wake up the next morning, you know, if something happens with that train. So does the town have any plans on what they're going to do or anything like that?
We don't have, unfortunately, you know, with respect to railroads, generally speaking, we don't have any jurisdiction over
Even though it
transport.
comes
You know, most of that,
down?
no, I mean, most of that's generally federal law, actually, under the, you know, Interstate Commerce Acts and so on and so forth, and the Railroad Transportation Act, mostly federal law. We do have certain jurisdiction over, you know, like the Easter trains and stuff like that, where they stop and get off the tracks and come onto property and things. There we get some jurisdiction, but in terms of what's transported on the rails, we have zero
Nothing
jurisdiction.
that, you know, can force them to put something to stabilize that? I don't know.
I mean, if you're concerned about the maintenance of the track, I mean, we can always try to get a letter maybe
Well,
through our
but
engineers.
they're always doing maintenance on that track. I see the trucks, because the entryway is right in front of where our driveway is. I always see them going back there with the trucks and stuff.
I just wanted to bring it to attention. I didn't know if the town had anything, you know, and I don't know if that affects the value of my house
Donnie,
as far as.
Mary, no.
I just want to ask
No.
if we have something in emergency management, that's all.
That was my only thought too.
It's my department,
Okay.
safety. Do we have anything for that kind of a disaster in our emergency management plan?
Train derailments or
I just wanted to bring it to the
Question?
attention. I mean, you know, anything can happen.
Absolutely. And in this day and age,
No,
you don't know. That's right.
and that's, you know, that's what I wanted to. See if anything could be done.
Thank you. Any other public comment on agenda items? Yep.
My name is Herb Rohr. I'm a carpenter. Although I'm not a township resident, I had an inspection today. I've been working in Cohatcong for quite a while, among other places. But I was talking with Wayne Dagan, and he said that there was going to be a vote tonight to get rid of the local code officials and bring in state people. I just wanted to say a word on Wayne's behalf that I think he's a good man, a professional man. I've known him for a long, long time. I know and like some of the state inspectors too, but some of them can be kind of boneheaded. They have the attitude that they work for the state, they've got a God position, and it's their way or the highway. When Wayne has found problems on my job, we've always been able to talk, make the corrections, and work goes on. But he has always been very pleasant and I think professional in his dealings. And although I have no vote or say money-wise or budget-wise, I just wanted to say that, you know, be careful. You don't always get what you think you're going to get. He's an honorable person.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment on agenda items?
Address that. I mean, are we actually voting, when we do the budget, we're talking about dollar amounts. Now, we can get to a dollar amount in different ways. I mean, for example, if we're essentially looking for, to save money on building inspecting. But I mean, there's different ways to do that with or without Wayne. I mean, you can go to the state, and I think you could probably explore cutting hours or doing some or increasing fees, as Mary said. But I hesitate to do that. I think we're both voting on a dollar amount, not the mechanics of getting to that dollar amount.
Yeah, and that position, we have to do an ordinance. So that's not, the dollar amount is on the agenda, but not that actual position. So we'd have to have a separate ordinance to vote on that position. So that's a good point, Frank. Any other public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we will move to the attorney's report.
Mayor, I gave you guys a brief written report. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, except I did just want to alert the public, and as I alerted you as a council, there was a recent, I say like last week, recent Supreme Court decision that's going to be impacting with respect to all municipalities in the state. Has to do with affordable housing. As this township and every other township in the state has been kind of in a holding pattern for, I guess, nearly 2 years, while litigation's been going on in the courts over the Council on Affordable Housing, whether they're doing their job and whether there are rules for how municipalities are supposed to develop affordable housing plans, as implemented, et cetera, et cetera. Well, last week, the Supreme Court, I guess, basically threw up its hands, decided that COA as an administrative agency is dysfunctional, not doing its job, and they've taken all the affordable housing compliance, litigation, et cetera, is going back to the courts where it was 25 years ago. So I just bring that to the attention of the public. Again, that's just another thing really that this mayor and council and all other mayor and councils are going to have to deal with. That is going to involve more planning with a planner, a new housing element, new fair share plan. You're no longer going to be able to submit those plans to COA if you want to be protected from a builder's remedy lawsuit. So we're going to have to file declaratory judgment actions with the court to get that protection, which actually we were always a court town anyway, but we're going to have to do that over. So, and we have roughly right now, it's a pretty tight time frame of 120 days or so to get all that done. So there's a lot of that will emanate out of the land use board. So anybody from the benefit, anybody here from the public who wants to see what goes on with that process, the housing element and fair share plan is actually a document that's originally crafted at the planning board. Our planner is for the township is choosing the rules. She's quite good. She has a lot of experience, but that process will be unfolding here in the next very short number of weeks and months. It's important to this township because the EAI property, by way of example, is an affordable housing exclusionary zoning product. And if you want to avoid that type of litigation again by a developer, we're going to want to take advantage of this window and get a plan filed. So that was very significant, and we'll have to jump on that. We do have an ongoing litigation, again, for the benefit of the public, because a lot of you, This is a big crowd. We don't usually have this many of you, but we have been in litigation over this building, as the council knows. I've been trying not to spend any money on the litigation, frankly. We keep staying in the litigation to try to work through some things with the contractor. I think we've had some progress there. I was hoping to have a memo for you guys from our architect, Jay Parentoni, tonight, who's going to kind of give you a complete spreadsheet of every issue and where we stand on it. It's quite a bit. He wasn't quite done with it. So we'll hopefully have that ready for the next meeting and have an executive session on that litigation at that point in time. But we have made certain progress with this building in that litigation. The contractor has acknowledged certain deficiencies and certain inconsistencies with the plans. And frankly, there's some other aspects of it which we've discovered are really going to end up being our problem. So that's where that is. Beyond that, Mayor, I think, again, the report kind of speaks for itself. Those are the two major issues I think that the public would be interested in as far as my report.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask
A question? Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Kevin, the COA,
Yes.
does that have an impact on our opting in on the Highlands? I remember one of the advantages of opting in into the planning area for the Highlands was you get a sort of like approval for a COA. Does that reduce an advantage or is it
I mean,
keep an advantage?
I think from an affordable housing standpoint, the township does have certain advantages. I mean, there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about how much of the township is in the preservation area. And a lot of people feel very strongly that that's not where the township should be. But nevertheless, that's where you are right now as you sit today. That has had adverse consequences in many respects to residents and other people. This might be the one area where that actually helps because everything in the preservation area, I think is going to be statutorily off limits to be included in a possible growth area. So that will help. The opt-in issue, Frank, deals with actually the small part of the township that's north of 78. That's the planning area.
Right.
And there you're correct to the extent that we've opted in. That gave us a lot of grant money to do our sewer planning in that area. And once we bring our ordinances into consistency with what the Highlands Council feels is appropriate, we are supposed to get statutory protection. We are supposed to get actual litigation protection and defense if we are sued. So that will all help. I don't think we're quite done with that process yet, but it will certainly be an important element. But nevertheless, even with those protections, I think it's going to be important to take that work and mold it into a housing element and a fair share plan and file that declaratory judgment action with the court so that we have it blessed in both areas.
To further that point, have they decided, if at all, if they were going to change penalties for not opting in or pursuing COA as far as, actually submitting to their plans? Or no, is that they still haven't?
The penalty is basically going to be, the court has felt that there's not been enough affordable housing developed in this state over the last 10 or 15 years or 20 years that COA has been in existence. Now, again, a lot of us may disagree with that. I would probably be one of those, but especially out here in these areas. But I think the penalty, the remedy that the court is looking to revive with some intensity is exclusionary development litigation. Generically, you can call it zone busting litigation, if you will, where that was the historic remedy. If you didn't develop an ordinance that permitted a realistic opportunity, realistic in quotes, a realistic opportunity for the construction of affordable housing, a developer with deep enough pockets could sue the township and upend the zoning altogether. And I think originally, like the EAI site was about 1,000 units.
So
It was Riverwalk originally.
Back in the 90s.
That Riverwalk site was originally like 1,000 units. That was an example of that. I think we have limited open land, candidly, at this point. So that will help in what our number will be. But nevertheless, we're going to have to, and I don't know, in answer to Frank's question, the dynamic between the court and the Highlands Council at least in this planning area, is an open question whether they're going to defer to them or not. Technically, they don't have explicit jurisdiction there. So it's a lot of things still percolating, but it's just something we're going to have to pay close attention to. And if that deadline doesn't get extended, I would say we'll at least want to make an application to the court to say, hey, we're trying, we need more time or whatever.
Okay.
Kevin, I have a question for you.
Go ahead, Sal.
Kleiner Village, we got credit for 16 units.
Right.
Now, will the numbers change? I feel that we should get a bigger percentage of affordable housing units because we did put in Clymer Village. It was only 3 municipalities. And I want this specified whenever you draw up the papers.
But don't they limit senior housing?
Yeah,
That's the
our
problem.
senior housing, unless the numbers change for senior housing.
Well, the
Our
numbers
numbers,
do change.
our numbers have been met. Yeah,
We,
but
we,
as far
we
as I
will
know, they
continue
haven't
to get,
changed
we'll,
as
con-
far as that goes.
we'll continue to get credit for those units, but we won't be allowed to use them beyond that.
Okay. All right, anyone else have any questions for Kevin? All right, thank you, Kevin. Gwen?
Okay, I have a question for him about it. How about the fees that
Case just happened, I'm not an expert.
fees that developers would pay, the co-op fees?
You know, they were, and again, we had about, again, for the benefit of the township, we had about $500,000 of development fees that we collected over the years, mostly from the larger commercial projects out by the highway. You may recall, I guess it was about 2 years ago, the state tried to take all that away from municipalities if it hadn't been spent. We were able to, in my office and through working with Susan in your office and the council, we kind of creative and we actually created a plan to reimburse ourselves for the purchase of the Shimer School. In conjunction with that, we put affordable housing restrictions on the school. So that's another location in the township that the township owns and controls, which is contemplated to be some type of affordable housing. And you know, we'll work forward on that.
How about
Those
fees, though,
fees
for
going,
commercial properties?
yeah, they're
Their
going
fees
forward.
down.
Those
Yeah.
fees were stayed.
Okay, are they still?
The court hasn't disturbed that at this point. So,
We do not- that's a condition
right.
of Starbucks, which I was contacted by Starbucks this week, and that's one of their conditions, so. we would
Pay a
not
fee.
be co-
Yeah, there's no fee at this
Okay.
point.
Now's
So-
the time to do it then.
Well, again, that we're controlled, you know, as you guys know, a lot of what we do is controlled by statute. That was a specific statute that created those fees. There's a specific statute that stayed the imposition of the fees. That stay is still in place. I think they actually continued it as part of the Permit Extension Act stuff.
Okay.
So they're not going to pay a fee.
Okay. All right. I only have a couple items. Just wanted to mention that Wanda and Chief Greenmeyer and I went to the second county hazard mitigation planning meeting. We had more worksheets to complete. I submitted one of them already, and I'm finishing up the second one. And we're still working with FEMA to get the remaining money from Hurricane Sandy. It's in the vicinity of $39,000. So they just continue to ask for additional paperwork. And our CFO is going to try to get me the hopefully final documents this Friday. And the only other item I have is we have the grant for Foch Boulevard. I brought up, you know, if we wanted to return it because we weren't going to do the project. I sent council an email about this. I did hear back from Mary, and Dave commented tonight. The state is going to allow us to reduce the scope of the project to stay within the amount of the grant, which is, I've never heard of them allowing the scope to be changed or the limits of the work to be changed. They don't want to send it out of the county, or they said it's going to end up in one of the big cities. So they have said that if we can reduce the scope of it, we can keep it. So
We reduce it to the exact amount that they
well, we
granted.
yeah, we can, you know,
Well, they'll pay the whole thing then?
Well, yeah. What I
Why do we do that?
that's what I had suggested in my email.
I thought there was some,
Yeah, well, I thought there's always a caveat.
Well,
Your fees are for.
yeah, they don't pay for engineering. They will pay for construction inspection out of the grant portion of it, but they don't pay for design and that
Can
kind
you
of
give
thing.
us an estimate of what it would cost?
I did, yeah. It was
Like not
$7,000.
seven, okay.
Oh, okay.
So we would have to, I think it was a resolution that they would want us to, pass a resolution, and then we have to submit a scope modification to the state. So if you're interested, I could do that and have a resolution for the next meeting.
Do we need to make that a motion or?
Yeah, can you do that, then we'll vote on it? Okay.
Just do the resolution.
Next meeting.
All right, that's all I had.
Well, will you be in contact with our DPW guys and see what kind of scope, what best would, use that money up there then?
Yep, absolutely.
Do you think that'll have any impact on water runoff then? Because that'll be the last.
Well, our original intent was to do it like we did the other roads with curb and drainage. This, we would just do patching, maybe stabilization fabric and painting work.
So we have to add
It
$7,000.
would change the amount of runoff.
Okay.
I have one issue for Gwen, actually. The county, if you recall, wanted us to put an easement on the arch, the Still Valley Arch. And I was a little bit concerned with the language. Not a big deal, but and then if you, I don't know if you saw an email from Corey, now they're looking for some type of confirmation that, at least our best guess is that it's a long-term fix.
Yeah, well, for how many years?
We're talking about 30.
Yeah.
It's tough to say. So maybe you and I can coordinate with Corey and see if there's some middle ground.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I know you're not used to such a large audience.
Yeah.
Can we get through you? Are you probably going to have to normally use your microphone?
I don't want to. Anyway, we had the Still Valley Arch project that we did. We got part of that money was county money, and they're looking for an easement, a preservation easement on the structure. We only own the structure. We don't own the. But so we want to do. We'll give them that, but there's just some cleanup language that we need to discuss with the engineer. So.
Gwen, with Bliss Boulevard, do we still have the bond out with Walmart with respect to that project?
Bliss Boulevard in Parkside?
Yeah.
No, that would have expired.
Just the one.
But we have it with Greenwich Street, right?
Greenwich Street's the county. Actually, the county and the township, the county has not even gotten to the point where they've accepted a maintenance bond, and the township hasn't gotten to the point where they've accepted a maintenance bond for the portion of Bliss Boulevard behind Walmart yet. We're still trying to get to that.
I mean, I don't, knock on wood, I don't anticipate it being a problem for the rest of this year, but I did see Kevin's memo with the plowing. It continues to be a problem.
Yeah, I was through there. It was not maintained at all in the last storm.
I did talk to the county engineer about it to see where they stood with Greenwich Street also, and he said he's pretty sure that all of the technical items have been resolved. They had some questions about some as-built information, and so he thinks it's now kind of held up with the county council. So I don't know, Kevin, if you want to reach out to him and try to get it resolved, because I think it's in everybody's best interest to get those roads turned over to the public.
I don't disagree, and I've been trying to get it out for 3 years, but we need the Form deed, the individuals that need to sign that deed. There's about 20 different individuals because there's multiple trusts that own that property, and some of those people live in foreign countries, Israel and here and there. I mean, that deed's probably going around the world. But I did do a memo to Walmart reminding them that it's their responsibility to plow that part of Bliss until we've accepted the road. We can't accept the road until we have a deed for the road. And they also seem to be holding up our deed. They're tying us with the county. They don't want to give anybody a deed until they give them both at the same time for whatever reason. I did, Donnie, in that memo, and I apologize. I know, half the time my emails don't get to the ohacon.org stuff. But if you guys have had to go over there and do any plowings or saltings and things on that portion of Bliss behind Walmart, if there's any way for you to calculate that, if you get that to me, I'll send it to them and say, hey, reimburse it so it gets back into your budget, because really that's their job, and you're doing that for them. And I know it's been a rotten winter, so if you have any of that, let me know. And again, yeah.
All the outlet roads, they're taking all the snow that's on that.
Right.
They're piling it up in the parking lots. They're plowing it out on our part of Bliss Boulevard, and we gotta deal with it.
That's not our part yet, though, is what I'm saying. It's really still theirs. So if you had to deal with that and you can recapitulate hours or man hours or salt, whatever supplies, and I know you do a lot of other things, but if you do have the time at some point to do that, I'll get that over to Walmart. And believe me, we'll get that sooner or later because it'll be a condition of accepting the road.
Yeah, that's good.
I talked to their contractor.
Yeah, one of the problems we have, and Gwen knows this too, I mean, it's constant changes in who you're talking to, and I'm sure you've had the same problems. They seem to change site managers, at the drop of a hat, so.
Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions for Gwen?
Well, I've got a question that I could cover if we're segueing into me anyway.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Historic Commission, they were asking what we have to do when with the Still Valley Tunnel arch. I think they got a grant for $160,000 or something on the wing walls, or maybe it's 120, and we have to come up with a quarter of it if we're going to do it. And I think there was an issue about, we've been talking a long time about, what's the matter with the top and whether the membrane goes all the way to the wall or something. If we can get that included in that or not. Do you know where we are? They were concerned that we got to start working on it if we're going to do it in the spring type of thing.
We have plans put together to do the concrete work. If there's additional stuff, we would have to add that into the contract document if we're going to do anything on the top.
And Frank, that ties into that easement discussion because I think in Corey's email, they were concerned about funding anything further there until we clarified the duration of the project, if you will. They want to make sure it's going to be a reasonably long-term fix, so.
They want to guarantee that the improvements are going to last 30 years or so, and I don't know who's going to be able to guarantee that.
Yeah, who makes that guarantee?
I'm starting to think we might just sign the easement and send it back and not do any guarantee. It might be the easiest way to address it. But the email from the Corey Tierney, who's Warren County Preservation Director, seemed to suggest that they were reluctant to release that last grant until we clarified the status of the work that's been done. So I'll try to have that addressed before the next meeting. And as I said, I may just recommend that we go along with the original language, which really had no guarantee at the time. I just was concerned because it was saying we couldn't do anything with it. We were at restore it potentially if there is a further substantial problem, but
okay,
we'll deal with that when that bridge is ever crossed.
All right, thank you. The other issue, or another thing that came up with the Historic Commission was Michael Margulies sent out a request that we lobby for more money going to historic preservation from the large amount of money that was bonded, I guess. And I think I'll let you talk to that since you addressed it very well. And that's all I have from Historic Commission since we didn't meet since our last meeting. And the budget, I'm not going to talk much about either because we're going to be talking a lot about that. And that's all.
All right, thank you, Frank. Dave?
Okay, Mayor, I'll start out with the Environmental Commission. We had our monthly meeting last night. We had a guest speaker, Beth Stiles from the Musconetcong Watershed Association. Her presentation mainly was on the Musconetcong River and seeing if the township would enroll it into the federal wild and scenic designation. There was discussion about it, the pros and cons. It was kind of tabled at the meeting that we would research it and we would have some kind of recommendation to give the council after we did our due diligence into it. This was back in 2004, was brought before the commission then, and the commission at the time had decided not to support it. I would think by our next meeting we'll have some kind of recommendation to give the council. We were mainly concerned about the benefits to the township and if there was any problems for any of the landowners or residents along the Musconetcong River. And as said, we were going to look into it and weigh the pros and cons and see if there was benefit, from the township and the residents. There was some talk last night about the community garden. With as much snow and ice and slush and mud, it's kind of hard to think about, but they're starting to get ready the 2015 season for the community garden. Anybody interested, talk to Rennie Melvin or Eric Brisson. They can give you any information you would be interested in that. Mary, I believe you dabbled in it a little bit last year, correct?
I have my asparagus bed and I planted 2 kinds of tomatoes, peppers, and string beans.
Well, either way, sooner than later, hopefully the snow will get going. You guys can be up there again.
I'd like to do some cold weather crops if possible this year.
Other than that, Mayor, we didn't have a whole lot of other things to discuss on the Environmental Commission. I'll dabble into the Land Use Board. We met last week briefly. Mainly was executive session. We had some things on the agenda. I believe the applicants deferred to come back at a later date. Is Wendy here? Wendy, do we really have anything other than the executive session that we discussed? Just a long executive session, correct. And that was about it for the Land Use Board. And I can give the DPW report now. They salted and plowed the township roadways and municipal parking lots and the playground lots, firehouse on March 4th and 5th. They power washed all the equipment used to fight the snowstorms after each snowstorm. They repaired the plows after each snow plowing throughout the township roadways. They cleaned off the snow off the drain pipes and the catch basin inlets to aid in the snow as it melted off. They cold patched potholes in the township roadways, and they barricaded off a section of roadway on Middle Street and a sinkhole on Ringwood Avenue. Other than that, Mayor, I don't have really anything else to report at this time.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, though, for now they're talking a possibility of more snow on Friday?
Our salt supplies are still adequate, Donnie? For one storm. And I think at this point, I think that'd be sufficient, hopefully. Right, that's what we talked about before. And is that throughout all the other municipalities that were? Yeah, I mean, I talked to some people from Pennsylvania across the river, municipalities over there, and they said the same thing.
Last year, the barge was all waiting to put the right flag up or whatever.
Right before it entered into port or whatever. Yeah. Different excuse, same result. Same result.
We tried getting into other co-ops, and we could order some salt off of one, and then the other, and we call up a co-op and we order salt from, they hang up on you.
Hopefully this will be the last if we get any.
Yeah, hopefully.
Harry, do you know when they're going to tear down the dam in Warren Glen?
Mayor, you were there at the one meeting. They really didn't have a specific time frame.
Yeah, that one, Sal, it's a little bit more complicated because of how much larger it is, but they're in the process. And I think also there's an issue because the way it's owned. There's some, the old plant has to, I think there has to be some consent with them as well. They're interested because there's some major liability.
Well, they awarded the contract already, $1.2 million.
I don't know. I think they're going to probably, what would they say, September or October? They were going to start, I think. That's what she said.
And that was one other thing that she had briefly talked about with the Environmental Commission was the benefits to the river, you know, as far as removing these dams along the river from the Delaware River north. And I guess their ultimate goal there is to remove everything from, as I said, the Delaware up through Bloomsbury.
Well, and also, too, she said she was going to come before council again as it becomes closer to talk about it. So as it gets closer, she's going to come in from the Musconetcong watershed. Okay?
I mean, basically, she said they were going to access the dam from the Hunterdon County side.
That it, Dave?
That wraps it up.
Thank you. All right, Sal?
There's two bills about vacant properties. They're in a committee right now, and it's going to be proposed for introduction to the Assembly. And we won't do nothing now, but very shortly, once this goes to the Assembly and to the Senate, we should take immediate action, because we have driven around. Tonight I drove around part of Route 627. There's some houses there, the holes are this big in the roofs. The houses are going to have to come down. And I'm going to have to ask the Public Works Department, because the one door in the one house was open. We'll have to get a piece of plywood and put plywood on this door, because kids are liable to go in there in this home.
Yeah. What are the bills that are being discussed? What are they going to do?
Senate Bill 2701-A-4172, Senate Bill 2702-A-4173.
And what do they do? What are they going to?
They are going to be our salvation. These two bills, if it passes, for these derelict properties. We won't do, I won't propose anything tonight, but we could find these vacant landlords, these mortgage companies, banks. It's about $1,500 a day.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to wrap them.
Well, we have to wait until it passes.
No, wait till it passes. No sense in doing it now.
Right.
And let's see what happens with these two bills. And hopefully we could do something if they pass.
Okay.
Okay, that takes, did you write that down?
Yep, I got the bills. Thank you.
Okay, now, that's one. I got one heck of a mess up here, I'll tell you. Edge Road. I need help. I'm glad to see so many people here from the public. People are just using our roads for garbage dumps. Edge roads, on Edge Road, we picked up couches, all kind of garbage. People just don't care.
Our part or Alpha's part?
Our part. And we need your help in apprehending these people. We just can't do it ourselves. We need the public's help. So if you see anybody dumping garbage, write down the license plate number and please call the police. I can't do anything about it, but the police can. This year, I'm not going to buy any infill mix because I checked all the playgrounds. I think we have enough. And the road crew, I talked to them. We are going to get these fields in shape once it dries up and all the ice and the snow get melted off. What about the Shimer House? We've got to do something with that. With those trees, they're either going to fall on VIP cleaners or the house itself. It's a dangerous situation, and it looks like hell. Right in the middle of town. Did you talk to Mrs. Carpenter?
I believe Mr. Margulies, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been talking with her, and I think there's...
I think what we reported last time was that the owner has approached the PHHS as opposed to
the private organization
What do you?
to give it to him, basically. But what happens with it? And we are not really, we're losing something when we do that. I mean, we're sort of contributing to the historic character of the town when we accept a donation like that, when they accept a donation like that, because we lose tax revenue when it goes to a nonprofit. But I think, Mike, I haven't heard any follow-up on that, but I think Mike Margulies was pursuing that with the owner. And I think he's going to be looking for some letter of support from us.
Oh.
Which
What, for us to come up with money?
No, he
No.
knows not to come to us for money. But support in terms of just,
tax relief, agreeing to tax
Exactly.
relief.
indirectly. Anything else, Sal?
Yeah. No infill mix this year. We're going to be on okay about selling Shimer School. The house is in bad shape. Let's see. I was looking at River Road. If we ever come into money, we could put a camera on each end of River Road and photograph these cars or trucks that have garbage in them and take their pictures and we'll nail them.
unless somebody breaks the camera.
Would that hold up in court, chief, if we did something like
They
that?
break the cameras, we're not gonna.
Difficult?
Circumstantial.
The cameras may deter people from trying it.
They know the cameras are out there, then
If you say it's under surveillance, then it might.
probably go elsewhere.
Okay, we'll have to wait
Get it out of my field.
Bills.
Then.
You're gonna stay on that with Mike Doherty?
Yeah, I'll look the bills up and,
Look that two
Yeah.
bills up and tell them, should we make a resolution that we're in favor of it or what?
yeah, I'll look up the bills. And what we can do is on the agenda, put a resolution to support it, and if we want, we can send it to our legislators, okay?
Very good.
We'll do that, all right?
Yeah, 'cause
All
it's
right,
Senate
very good.
Yeah.
They have both numbers for both houses.
Yeah,
Right now, that's all I have to say.
all right. Thank you, Sal. Mary, I will defer to you. I will, real quick, just want to say on Saturday, April 11th, the Musconetcong Watershed Association is doing their annual cleanup. It follows the first week of fishing because it tends to be, we get a lot of people who don't normally fish. It's their first time, and normal fishermen will protect the land that they fish, and people who do it one and done tend to make a mess. So the Musconetcong Watershed Association kind of tailors it with that time period. So on their website, you can sign up and look at different points. There are some in Powhatan. So if you're going to be around that time, it coincides with Earth Day. So it's a nice event to go out there and help clean up part of our community and really our global community as well in Powhatan. The other thing I wanted to make a motion for council tonight is we had discussions last meeting about a neighboring municipality in Lopakong that was interested in discussing several positions currently that both towns have. Approximately 3 years ago, the legislature passed what was called the Common Sense Shared Service Act. And what that does is it allows the township to explore positions to share with other towns that normally we would not be able to touch because of tenure and other protections. These include the town assessor, clerk, CFO, and tax collector. What I have proposed to Lopakong Township is that we have a joint meeting with both governing bodies. All of these positions are crucial to municipal operations, so I think it's important that if we are going to discuss sharing these positions, that all 5 governing body members from each municipality participate in those discussions. I spoke with the mayor over there and their council president, and they are both in favor of at least meeting. So I would ask that we also have a motion this evening to participate in a date to be determined. Lopakong Township meets tomorrow night, so they'll probably follow suit with us. But if we could have a motion to, I guess, split the advertising costs with them, whatever that costs, to have a meeting with Lopakong, and I, invited them to come to our building to discuss this. So I would hope that our council would support the idea to at least explore the option of sharing some of these positions that otherwise would not have been afforded to us. This bill is very unique because it only, out of the 21 counties in New Jersey, it only affects 5 of them, and Warren County being the one. So I think the legislature has implored it upon us to take a role for the rest of the state to show that if given the tools, we're able to participate in these shared services. So I think the state is kind of looking to us to lead on this, and I would hope that if I could have a motion for that, we would implore it. Very good. Okay, so if we could add that to the motion agenda, we'll put that down near the end. And with that, Mary, if you would like to.
Okay, I have a few things. Can you hear me now? There we go. All right, first I have, it's from the Warren County Soil Conservation District. It came with my, my wood plan that comes from the forester, and it's the annual sale of flowers, flower seeds, or the roots, or also conifers, hardwoods, and shrubs. And the thing about it is that it's an excellent price. If you went to like a Lowe's or something, you'd be spending a small fortune on the things that they offer. So if you go to their website, which is www.warrencountyscd, which is Soil Conservation District.com, my guess is you'll find this probably on there, and it lists all the different things that are available, what they are, and also what their cost is. The only, I guess you could say it's a negative, not to me it's not, is that you have to go to Steiger Street in Hackettstown on certain, they have a few days to pick up the things that you order. But like I said, it's a great bargain. And if you want to plant, they have both sun and shade, roots, seeds, and trees. So it's really a good deal. Next, I have the monthly call report from the emergency squad of Peaburg, and they've done 20 calls into Powhatan. 16 of them were medical, 3 were vehicle accidents, and 1 was fire-related. And well, 4 of those medical calls were in the southern part of the township, but that really doesn't matter anymore because now they're doing all of Powhatan because Bloomsbury Rescue Squad no longer exists. So Phillipsburg Emergency Squad has taken on the whole township instead of just part of it. Next, I have our police report for February 17th through March 16th. And they responded to 525 calls for service. They issued 257 traffic summonses, and they made 27 arrests. The CIU opened 30 new cases, and they did investigate 21 motor vehicle crashes. Any at my favorite intersection?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And so the whole department has completed their CPR recertifications, and that course was given by the rescue squad. The department also completed their quarterly rifle qualifications. The 21st annual Easter egg hunt, this is a fun thing, it's going to take place on Saturday, March 28th, 2015. It'll take place at the Pohatcong School at 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you go to the department's Facebook page, they'll have more information there for you. I know they do break the children up into groups, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cute, especially the little ones. Anyone wishing to coach for the Pohatcong Recreation Association can refer to the department's website for background check instructions. There have been many questions about this background check, and the website hopefully will clarify the proper procedure that they need to go through to get that certification and get their identification card. The card, they really look neat. I've seen them, and they're pretty cool. Let's see. Okay. All right, and that brings me into, before when we were talking about the red light camera, I had the chief assist me with going into all the details of the red light cameras. So now I want to go in detail about the police as far as what they do. You know, people go, oh, well, we only have like 3,100 people. Why do we need all the police? Well, he's going to go through what they do, and you'll understand why we need to have them.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor and Council for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Chief, could you just do it into the microphone so we can?
For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Jeff Greenmeyer. I am the Chief of Police in Pohatcong. I'm not going to take much of your time, but I would like to give just a quick PowerPoint presentation. At the previous council meeting, it was suggested that the police department is overstaffed. I respectfully disagree with that, and I would like to show everybody why I say that. So if you could just give me 2 minutes to set this thing up, I'll need probably 10 minutes of your time.
No.
Wait till Jeff.
We don't have any heat, but we got a
Screen that.
What is it?
Yeah.
You couldn't see the
You want to order?
Yeah. Did you try it earlier today?
Don't worry about it. I want you just to push the button for me. Right, you can sit here. It's going to be the space bar. Everybody see that?
Oh.
Turn those lights off behind you guys? Or?
Well, I turned off those, but I don't know.
You're going to have to turn them all off to get that one.
Oh, like a movie theater.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll hear no noise coming from you when that light goes out. Like the children in school.
Over here, get it? Behind the screen here.
One's by the door.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, still put that. Well, you, yeah, double click it.
Anyone have a problem with seeing that?
that's much better. What this is this stat here. This was taken from the FBI Uniform Crime Reports. For those of you that are not familiar with that, that is a report that comes out yearly from the FBI. And basically what it does is it assigns a crime index to each municipality throughout the entire nation. These numbers here are the highest numbers in Warren County. The crime index, I could try and explain to you how they come up with this number, but you'd be bored to tears. I have that here if you want to see it. It's the formula that they use. There are certain enumerated offenses that they use for a Part 1 and a Part 2 index. All right. Long story short is the FBI uses their own procedure to assign a number to each town. And again, it's based on your crime rate. So looking at this, the towns that I used was Greenwich, Hackettstown, Lopakong, Mansfield, Phillipsburg, and Powhatan. Powhatan, if you see those numbers on top, those numbers on top are the number of police officers, full-time police officers in that particular township. 12.625 is because we have a part-time officer. So the number on the left correlates to the crime index. This is an average of 2013 and 2014. Instead of taking 1 year, I took the last 2 years. Now, obviously, Phillipsburg is the highest. They're over 600. Their crime index is over 600. But once you get past Phillipsburg, you can see Hackettstown, Mansfield, and Powhatan are almost identical. If you look at their numbers from 13 and 14, they're almost identical. Looking at that, Greenwich was a little bit higher, and the lowest crime rate was Lopakong. Now, the thing that I find interesting is if you look at the towns that are identical. You have Phillipsburg, then you have, again, Powhatan, Hackettstown, and Mansfield. Mansfield had 12 officers in 13 and 14. They hired more people, but I'm going to get to that. But at this time, Mansfield had 12 officers. We had 12 officers. Hackettstown had 16 officers, pretty much with the same crime rate. Now this is really telling here. The presentation that was actually done at the last council meeting suggested that we're overstaffed, and that was based on 1,000 people. Well, according to the Uniform Crime Report, and this is online for anybody who wants to see it, the address is down on the bottom. But if you look at the crime rate per 1,000 residents, Powhatan is the highest in the county. We are higher than Phillipsburg. We are higher than Mansfield. We are higher than Lopat, Hackettstown, and Greenwich. Okay? The numbers in the blue is the 2011 number. The number in the red is the 2012 number. I don't have the 13 and 14 numbers yet, quite frankly, because they didn't come out yet. So I think that's extremely telling. The suggestion that we had 3,400 people in town is true. That is our population of the people that live here. But that is not the amount of contacts that my police officers have on a daily basis. The 2010 DOT traffic study, on average, 20,000 vehicles enter this township in a 24-hour period. I would imagine it's higher than that on the weekends, but those 20,000 vehicles contain maybe one driver, maybe there's 4 passengers. When they're in this township, my officers are responsible for anything that may occur while they're here. Are they driving through? Possibility. Are they driving to Walmart? Are they driving to the mall? Are they driving? Who knows where they're going? But that's a lot of vehicles. We're responsible. Everybody here knows what the traffic light is in the morning. We're responsible for vehicles that are broken down, disabled vehicles, motor vehicle accidents. These are all things that my officers have to deal with for the people who do not live in the township.
Chief, real quick, is there any more up-to-date DOT? Because that's the most.
Latest that we can find.
Okay.
There's a lot of data on there. But, and again, the thing
Yeah,
that
that's
I
what
would
I was
like to point
thinking.
out, though, on average, 20,000 vehicles. That when I say that, that's 22. That's the main road going through the township. That's not 78. That's not, you know, the side roads. When I say 20,000, this study was from Route 22. The other thing that I noticed in the presentation before was that there was a reference to 1995 when the township had 7 police officers. I know there were 7 police officers because I was the 7th. I was hired in 1994. 1995, I was number 7. I went and pulled the numbers from 1995. We did have 7 police officers, and the population was a little bit higher. Not much, maybe 300 people or whatever it was. We still had the same amount of houses. We had 2,200 documented reports in 1995. A documented report is an officer responds to a scene, takes a report. It could be, a criminal investigation. It could be something where they just have to document it. But when I say this, we're pulling information from somebody and we're generating a police report. 1995, we had 2,200 of those type of calls. With 7 police officers, that averages 314 documented calls per officer. This is rough numbers because we did have a detective, we did have a chief, and again, we have a criminal investigation unit now. The crime has changed since 1995. It's more intricate. It's longer. We're dealing with totally different circumstances than we did in 1995. 2014, we had 6,111 documented reports, almost 3 times the amount. Granted, we had 12.625 officers, but still when you do the math, you're still over, say, 150 more calls per officer. So the workload did not decrease, the workload is increasing. We're on pace for 2015, we're estimating about 6,400 documented calls with 12.65, 507 calls per officer. Again, that's an estimation. The actual calls, the time-consuming calls that we also are responsible for are things that you don't normally think of. Return phone calls, need a party at headquarters, a check-in area. You go to an area and there's nobody there. We don't document if we get reports to go to Regalsville and we were over, let's just say we were up on the highway and we're going to check on a report of a dead deer. Anything like that. If there's nothing for us to report, we don't document that. So from 2012 to 2014, we averaged 11,314 calls for service. Okay, that is a little bit different than the documented. That means, just like I said, it could have been the return call. But it's busy work. A lot of times you have to come in off the road. You have to help with discovery. There's 1,000,001 things that you have to do that you don't, that I don't get to give a stat for, and then they give a report, each month. So there is a lot more that actually goes into it. This is what I was talking about before with the police staffing level. If you recall, we were pretty much even with Hackettstown and Mansfield as far as the UCR, the crime reports. Since 2013, Greenwich Township did not hire anyone. Okay? Hackettstown hired an officer. Hackettstown was about the same crime rate that we were. They hired an officer. Well, Patcon hired 2 officers and had half the rate that we had. Mansfield hired 2.
They just hired one, another one.
I think they have, what, 15 or 16 officers now?
Since this was done,
They have 16 police officers now, and they had half the rate that we have. Like Mansfield hired 2, Phillipsburg hired 2 more. Since 2012, we've lost 2 officers. Granted, since 2010 we lost 3 officers, but 2012 we lost 2 more officers, and that was because we lost Alpha. So we are basically back at the same manpower that we were prior to picking up Alpha. So the other towns with the same rates that we had, who had more officers to begin with, are hiring. They're still hiring officers because they also need the help too. So I just wanted to point that out, that we're still in this, we do have a part-timer, and he's awesome, he does a great job. But you know, he only works 25 hours a week, but we're getting 27 years of police experience. I go to him all the time for help. And I don't think he gets benefits or anything like that, so what we're getting is deal with him. That .65 has been huge. This is a little bit more analytical. I'm not going to try and explain this to you because it's boring. There's 2 different formulas that police departments do use to see what their proper their staff should be. This particular is a minimum staffing requirement. It's a work analysis, and I have them over here if anybody wants to see them. We did them, and we wrote them down, and when you look at it, your head's going to spin because it's a formula, and it is pretty intricate. But based on this model here, we should have 12 patrol officers. Currently, we have 8. Not complaining. I'm not complaining. My guys do a great job. We're involved in a lot of things. As most of you know, I don't know if you're on our Facebook, but we do a lot of community events. We're in pretty much everything. You heard the numbers that we gave as far as, we're out there doing our job. Month in and month out, and I will put our numbers up against any department in this town. We currently have 8 officers. According to this, we should have 12. This is the Internal Association or International Association of Chiefs of Police. This is another formula that's used. According to this mythology, we should have 17 officers. I'm realistic, but again, and the only reason that I put this stuff up there is because I'm trying to show that yes, our population is what it is, but the officers are responsible for everybody that comes into this township, and our transient population, I'm going to guesstimate at any time there's 10,000 people. More on the weekend, it could be more than that. It could be more than that. Again, that's just a guesstimate. But we're not, as suggested in the article that was in the paper, it kind of alluded to the fact that we have more officers, tripping over themselves. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, and I thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to explain this. But I felt that it was necessary that there was more to this than was actually just doing the simple division with the population and the amount of officers. So I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Comments and questions?
Yeah, I think, Chief, would you be able to take some questions from council, just in reference to the presentation? Yeah, that'd be good. When we had Alpha, were those numbers factored into there as far as increased call volume at all? As far as when it went from 1995 to 2012, like what was the percentage that you would say?
It would be factored in there. Well, you're talking about from the numbers that I gave?
Yeah, there was that in there?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
And then what, when we,
have Alpha in 1995.
no, I know. I just wanted to make sure that they weren't included. Okay.
Absolutely not.
And then to follow up on that, when we did have Alpha, what type of call volume was that generating?
You really, I'm gonna have to think back there. I'm gonna say maybe an additional 600 calls a year with Alpha. It wasn't many. It wasn't many at all. You know, again, that's just by my memory. I'd have to go back and actually look. I mean, I could get you exact numbers, but again, that's going back on. I would estimate 600.
And you were here in 95, so you were here through this. What was the impetus? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I'm curious to think what you think it is. What was the impetus that caused the call volume to go up? Was it commercial development?
It's it's all the you know, the malls, the stores coming in. Well, in 1995, there was no such thing as the Powhatan Plaza.
It was getting built.
I think it was after that.
I broke ground for it.
And there was the Phillipsburg Mall, and then there was a store called Laneco. And Laneco, if you remember, next to Laneco there was a pizza place, and there was you could rent movies. And I think that's
Marvel.
You know, and ever since we brought in the you know, the stores and things like that, obviously that's going to bring in more crime. We deal a lot of fraud. We deal with a lot of identity theft. You know, we deal with everything that you could possibly imagine. And some of you have heard me say this before. We've arrested people. They have maps to Powhatan, and they live in New York City. You know, we just arrested a group. They're all from the Bronx, you know, and they're all up here, and they come out here because they think that we don't know any better. We're experts at this. We've been doing this a long time. You know, luckily we do have violent crime. We don't have a lot of violent crime, you know, but what concerns me is if we start losing officers, they're going to move in. You know, if they feel that there's an opportunity that a criminal can come in and get away with something, they're going to come in.
Chief, what is the number one crime you would say, if you had to categorize as far as in the township?
Well, obviously we have a lot of shoplifting. You know, we do deal a lot up at Walmart. We have a lot of drugs. We do have issues. You know, we have family issues. Everybody has family issues. It doesn't matter where you live. You know, Phillipsburg has more family issues than we do because they have 25,000 people. We have 34 or whatever.
But if you were to characterize it, you would say shoplifting. That's the
theft. I mean, because a lot of it goes in hand. Because you know, a lot of people that we arrest for shoplifting, it turns into other things. And the nice thing is, our criminal investigation guys are really good at what they do, and we're solving a lot of cases based on simple shoplifting arrests. Because we don't bring them in and we don't process them and say, okay, out the door. We bring them in, and our detectives talk to these guys, and you would not believe the information that they get. It blows my mind.
Now, when that happens, when the shoplifting takes place in Powhatan, where would you say the breakdown of the other crimes take place? Like when we arrest, you know, some guy who stole a PlayStation controller up at Walmart, and then he goes down and he tries to cut a deal or whatever and explains that he's a drug pusher or something. Where do those crimes take place at a majority?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
It's spread out. I mean, the criminals don't stay in one particular place. They move around to where they think that they can get away with what they're going to get away with. You know, we've had reports of drug deals, and I'm not going to throw any store names out there because I'm not going to do that, but we have reports of drug deals that go in, you know, on in the convenience stores on a daily basis. Not just one, all of them, because it's easy to meet there. A convenience store, what do? You walk in, you're in there for what, 2 minutes? Oh, they're coming in to get coffee. Well, they're also passing along dope. It happens. 78 is right there. You know, it happens. You don't think that it happens, but trust me, it's going on.
Okay, I got one more for you, then I'll yield to the mic. colleagues. So if there is a shoplift, there is a crime, is it then our responsibility to investigate that when we find that out, or can that be then turned over to another town where the actual crime occurred? As like that, I just want to get.
Without saying too much, we develop the information and then pass it on.
Okay.
All right.
All right, those are my, anyone else have any questions for the chief?
I do. First of all, I want to say thank you for an excellent presentation. I thought you did
Thank you.
a great job. Even though it was critical of my presentation, I still think you did a great job. When you came to my house probably 2.5 years ago,
I remember.
I asked you the question why we had 7 policemen in when you started, and we have, at that time, I think we had 14 or 15 or somewhere in there. We still had Alpha, I think. And you gave me the same answer, which is most of the people in town don't create the crime. A lot of it is transients. And I guess I have a question about transients itself. I mean, State Highway Route 22 goes through Pohatcong, and transients transit on Route 22. And I noticed in looking at a lot of other towns that a lot of other towns use state police, and that keeps their budget for police low, police salary and wages low. We don't have that opportunity, but I'm wondering why the state police can't help us out at least on transients on the state Route 22.
And that's a valid question, but I could tell you since 1994 when I was hired here, it just never happened. They patrol Route 78. We actually get, when the state police, let's just say it's a disabled vehicle, they'll sit behind the car until the POHAC car pulls up and then they drive away. Why they do that, I can't answer that. That's just their policies, I guess.
Is that universal to other towns and other state highways? I mean,
yeah.
So if that were to happen in Alamucci, the state trooper would stay there.
Well, if they're working a rural town where there's no police department and they have some kind of, I don't know, they contract them out or what, I don't know what they do, but the norm is if your township has its own police department, they do not police it. If it hits the fan and you need their assistance, they will come out and help you. You know, we've had a couple times where they've come to calls, and you know, when we need them, they'll be there, but they're not going to be the primary call takers.
Moving on, I've looked at, based on some comments I think Mary made about the area as well as the population of towns. I kind of looked at the 22 municipalities in Warren County, and actually I looked at Holland Township too, since they border us. And only 3 towns had salary and wage budgets higher than Pohatcong. They were Phillipsburg. I assume Phillipsburg. Yeah, I actually couldn't get into their data, but I'm sure with 36, I think actually I thought they had 38 police officers.
They have 38.
I'm sure they have a larger budget. Hackettstown and Lopatcong, all of which are considerably larger. Now, I understand you dispute that we are, you say that we can't just look at population, we have to also look at crime statistics. But I just have a hard time figuring that Mansfield is so much different than Pohatcong that we need to have more police proportionately and have higher pays. And I looked at the areas as well, because Mary raised that point about a lot of the neighboring towns have smaller size towns. So the implication is that they take less police to police a smaller area. But Powhatan is right in the middle. There's 12 towns with larger areas and there's 9 towns with smaller areas in Warren County. And there's 11 towns with larger populations and there's 10 towns with smaller populations. And I also thought about, because I'm wondering, why is our budget so high for police salary and wages? And I think some of it can be not just the number of police we have, but how much we pay them. I think we pay police here very well. And I think some of that could be because the level of police we have is fairly high. We have 1 captain, 1 lieutenant, and 2 detectives. Lopat and Mansfield, by comparison, have 1 captain and 1 detective, without the lieutenant and without 1 detective. And I saw your slide about the number of patrolmen we have, and I'm wondering whether we should have maybe a detective in a patrolman's uniform patrolling while he's detecting, and maybe a lieutenant who patrols as well. And that may help our number of patrolmen that we have.
We do that now.
The detective is in a policeman's uniform.
While the lieutenant is out on the road, he's basically, his role really as a lieutenant is administration, but he's out on the road. He's basically the patrol supervisor.
And your role is administration too, right?
I do both.
Yes.
Correct.
So I do think, I looked at the average pays of our police, and the average New Jersey gross wages in 2014 were $118,000 for police. And, I know this is not a popular idea, especially among police, but if each policeman were paid $10,000 less, their average pay would be still $108,000, and you could save a policeman at the same budget. Another concern I had was the vacation time that police have. For some reason, when we went from 10 hours, when we went out from an 8-hour, 5-day work week to a 10-hour, 4-day work week, the administration of the vacation time I don't think was changed. And as a result, vacation time for police is 25% higher than it was based on the 8-hour schedule. So a policeman with 10-year policeman who would normally get 4 weeks vacation based on an 8-hour per day work schedule actually ends up with 5 weeks vacation. And a policeman with 6 weeks vacation, who has a 20-year policeman with 6 years vacation, sorry, I'm saying this wrong. A 20-year policeman with 6 weeks vacation normally actually gets 7.5 weeks vacation. And if we went actually by the 12-hour schedule, which is allowed in the contract, but I don't believe is enforced or used, a policeman with 20 years of service would be eligible, if we use the same methodology, would be eligible for 9 weeks vacation. It's almost enough to make a school teacher blush. And that's besides the fact that the vacation schedule for police was already more generous than other employees, even before the 25% increase. And this leads to sellbacks, and I understand there's some concession there, and I'm interested to hear about that. But we paid to sell back for time that police actually didn't police, for vacation and sick time. They have so much vacation and sick time they don't use it all. We paid over $20,000 to just one policeman for time he didn't work, for vacation that he didn't use. So I appreciate that you guys do a great job, and I really do. I think you do a great job, and I think you especially do a great job. But you know, and I just have empathy for all of us who are paying for it as well. I mean, I think the people, you know, people are hurting. I've got an email here. Please give some serious thought to this large property tax increase being proposed for our town. We're barely hanging on now to our property. We've been struggling for years with this $10,000 tax load. We can't take anymore. We'll be forced to leave our home if this should pass. Thank you for your serious consideration. Another one says, as a longtime resident, 7th generation of my family to live in our home here in Powhatan Township, based on numbers in this article, we could see a large tax increase. These continued increases in municipal and school taxes are making it difficult to continue to stay in this community, which concerns me greatly given my family history and roots in this community. As my husband and I start to approach retirement age, it's becoming evident that we will not be able to afford to stay in the home that I grew up in or pass it down to the 8th generation of my family. I urge you all to do what is necessary to not propose a tax increase this year. The community just can't afford it. I mean, I've got more of them, but I mean, it's more of the same. And I just am empathetic to the people who can't afford it. Some of us can, but a lot of us can't. I shouldn't say us. A lot of people in this town can't. And I hope as we have budget discussions, we take that into keep that in mind. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have questions for the chief? Okay. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Moving on, we will begin the budget discussion, and Lorraine, if you want to kick it off.
Really hadn't planned anything. We left off at our last meeting with potential of 22 cents of an increase, and several considerations were given, opinions were heard. Council had all sorts of different ideas for savings, and before last Saturday, we were at about 7.5 cents. Some of the most recent changes, suggestions that had come in, had included putting some of our DPW salary into the sewer utility. In 2014 and prior years, we had about 25% of our DPW salaries and wages paid by the sewer utility. The suggestion was made to increase that by another $35,000. That would be about another 13%. So we would be moving, instead of 25%, 38% of the full DPW salary burden into the sewer utility. I did get a general consensus in speaking individually to most of the council that that would be an acceptable offering to help decrease the burden on the taxpayers. Did you want to discuss the options?
Yeah, if you just want to go through, yeah,
you want to discuss after each item, or do you want to discuss at the end?
Well, get us to where we're at as far as a consensus, I guess, and then.
Do you want the items that made up the consensus?
Yeah, I'm just curious what they are.
Okay, pretty much everyone agreed with the exception of Councilman Becker. There was a move to add back in expenses that had been cut from the Land Use Board. The original theory was to decrease the number of meetings from 2 to 1 a month and it was estimated that $9,500 would be saved. There was an urge to add that back into the budget. There was some drainage work in our Department of Public Works. In their operating expenses, one of the sub-accounts was for drainage for $10,000. The governing body had suggested reducing that to $5,000, cutting it in half. The idea of labor layoffs had come up again. I don't believe that was a consensus, so I won't bring that up unless you want me to. There was an income opportunity through one of our police officers serving in an alternate function where additional court revenues should be anticipated. Another municipality, I believe, had received about $300,000 annually. We had estimated that it would take several months after we got into the program to start seeing any kind of revenues. So the idea was to increase our court revenues by $65,000. And then there were some shared service options that are in a preliminary talking, not even a negotiation stage yet, that would also save, but until they would be realized, you really can't plan on them in your budgeting process. So a general consensus has brought the overall increase to about 4.5 cents.
Could you just speak to the, in the budget, the number associated with the police concessions that were made?
Sure. Originally, our police salaries and wages, I'm sorry, I need a mouse and I can't get it. Using the pointer part. Originally, our police salaries and wages were almost 1.5 million. Some of the agreements that have been reached in speaking with the police department included reducing sellbacks. We originally had anticipated 58,000 as we spent 64,000 last year, I think, 68,000.
Yeah.
We had
Sellbacks of time not worked.
Correct, that's sellbacks of accumulated leave time. I'm sorry?
Irregardless, the number, yeah.
The negotiated amount had been reduced to zero, so that removed $58,000 from our police salaries and wage budget. And also there was a concession to reduce overtime by $45,000. So that reduced our police overtime from $140,000 to $95,000. So our police salaries and wage line item decreased from a little, right around 1.5 million to 1.376.
So what's the gross total of that number of the police concessions?
The total of the items given up?
Yeah.
103.
58 and 45 is 103.
Okay. So that leaves the current gap that we're at 4.5% doesn't include any labor reductions or anticipate any shared services.
Correct.
Okay.
That is a great reduction in your capital spending as well.
And were there any changes to DPW in there?
Staffing levels?
No.
Concession?
No. Capital.
From the very beginning or just in the recent?
I think we'd already talked about the trackless tractor. How about recently?
Other reductions that have been made were in paving. Normally we put have a little under $200,000 for road paving. In the past, we had $175,000. In this year's budget, we had originally gone in with $150,000. It was reduced by $55,000 to account for the monies from the trackless machine that we're going to cancel We'd originally appropriated in the prior year $95,000. So as long as we cancel that funding appropriation, then that would free up another $95,000. So we've taken $95,000 out of the road paving budget for this year. So the current budget would only show $55,000, but we could still reappropriate the $95,000 that we cancel to provide the funding that we're removing from this.
So essentially, recently, you reduced it by 40,000.
Yes.
40, okay. 40 from about, I guess, 155 or so for factoring in that 95.
From, right, it had been reduced to 95,000 and then reduced by another 40 to 55,000.
Okay. Anything else on the capital for DPW?
DPW garage, there was originally an appropriation in for 20,000. I think that was for physical garage improvements. That was removed completely. So there's no monies for that. The purchase of the dump truck for DPW, we had originally $60,000 in there, and that has been spread over additional years. So now we only have $30,000 in there for that.
And all these changes were made by consensus? Or consensus among at least three, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Can I comment at some point?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Are you almost done or done?
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything prepared. I was just going to
Okay.
the changes. So that's all the
You know,
changes.
before you go, Frank, the one other thing I just wanted to mention was we had I got a couple responses about the rec association and what we were said we decreased their funding. We actually, this governing body actually increased their funding significantly the past few years, and we actually brought it back to what it was prior to that point. So we're not significantly slashing that funding. So I just wanted to make that clear that, you know, we didn't do anything that was extraordinary to the Recreation Association. So, okay, Frank.
Okay. I guess since I wasn't part of that consensus, I don't even think I was, you know, other than through emails, which was said, if you agree with these, please let me know. It didn't say if you disagree with them, please let me know. I guess that's the way you got consensus, was you got three people to agree with some of these things, but didn't listen to people who disagreed. I want to understand better the reducing of the sellbacks. The way I understand sellbacks is when, and this is police, I guess we're just talking about right now, when a policeman has vacation in 1 year, for example, 2014, they have to use them by 2015, or they can sell them back. Is that right?
I think the original idea behind the sellbacks in the police contract, any vacation days that they don't use at retirement, they can sell back. I think that the idea at the time was if you sell them back in 2015, they're cheaper than they are in 2025. I think that was the...
So you could sell them back currently, I mean, in the following year, unused vacation time. So if, so we were reserving quite a bit, or we were anticipating $58,000 of the need for sellbacks. And if I understand this concession right, you are not going to exercise your right to sell back. Policemen are not going to exercise their right to sell back in 2015, which alleviates the need for the town to expense that 2015.
From my understanding, that's correct. I wasn't part of the negotiation, but I believe that's what that was the agreement.
So, I mean, but can a policeman use the 2014 vacation in 2015 rather than sell it back at the end of 2015?
I would imagine that they're probably going to use it this year.
So if they use the 2014 vacation in 2015, are they giving up anything? Rather than, if they use it rather than sell it, are they giving up anything? I guess I'm not understanding the mechanics of this sellback and what you're actually giving us. And maybe you are, but man, I'm just not understanding it, but I hope you are. I hope it's not a situation where you're just deferring vacation, you're not selling back any this year, but the amount of vacation you have in the following year to sell back is going to be larger because you didn't sell any back this year.
No, you can only sell back up to 1 year at a time.
Yeah, but if you use it instead of lose it, you may not be giving up anything. I'd like to make sure that that's a real savings, and I hope it is. The other question is overtime. I heard that you're I don't know if you can call this giving up overtime, because I mean it's up to the town to pay overtime, and it's up to you to schedule the need for overtime. So if people don't work, if you're able to schedule, which I hope you are, less overtime, then people are working less overtime, and they're getting paid less because they're working less. I don't know, and I remember raising this issue last year, saying that the budgeted overtime seemed like a lot, and you agreed to cut it back then for 2014. But somehow the 2014 overtime expenditure, actual expenditure, ended up being a lot more than was budgeted for 2014.
Over $7,000.
But
it was cut quite a bit.
Yeah, it was cut quite a bit. I thought it was more than that. But okay, thank you. The sewer. I mean, how are you going to justify, Donnie, maybe you could tell me, what percentage of the time do you think the DPW spends on sewer?
Not much.
Not much. And we're already charging the sewer 25% of our DPW budget. And you're going to charge the people up in Shimer and those people 38% when not much? Give me a break. This is like whack-a-mole. You know, whack that one this year, come up next year. Whack this one in this department, comes up in this department. It's not cost savings. It's incidence of cost. It's where it comes. It's not how much. We should stop playing games with budgets. The DPW. I mean, I think, you know, this town is hurting. This town, we lost the red light cameras. Philosophically, I disagree with red light cameras. From a people hurting perspective in this town, I agree with red light cameras. They produce the revenue that's been able to let us afford this excellent workforce. The problem is we don't have it anymore. So sacrifices need to be made. They're going to be made someplace. They're going to be made by employees, or they're going to be made by taxpayers. But they're going to be made. And it's just a question of balance. And talk about shared sacrifice. We talked about the DPW. We sacrificed the trackless tractor, which they've been hoping for a long time. The maintenance building is old. We have a state-of-the-art police station downstairs. I think we had the philosophy that we were looking for shared services, and we said, build it and they'll come. We built it and Alpha left. One of the comments that I didn't read talked about where do we get off spending $1 million on a municipal building and $1.5 million on a solar field. I didn't want to tell them that the municipal building is no $1 million. It's probably a multiple of 3 of that. You know, sometimes you just got to cut costs. You can't just keep spending. Our people are hurting too much. And you can argue with me with my crude ratios. But, I mean, before I did those crude ratios, nobody did any ratios. Nobody looked at anything. And I think it's about time we did. And I think it's about time we made some tough choices. That gets me to the Land Use Board secretary position, not performance, position. Talk about consensus. Last meeting we had consensus among 5 people, not 3, that position should be, the compensation for that position should be lowered, and we should encourage a meeting a month rather than more than a meeting a month. And we actually haven't had much more than a meeting a month anyway. And pay appropriately. I did some research on the Land Use Board secretary. Well, I've been barking up this tree for 3 years now. And I think last time I barked up this tree, I was criticized because there weren't all 22 municipalities in the survey I was looking at, and that some towns had a planning board and a board of adjustments instead of a land use board. So I went and looked at each of the 22 towns where I could find it. I couldn't find it for everybody. But for most towns, and I added together those 2 positions. And even when adding them all together, there's only 1 town, 2 towns probably. I couldn't get Phillipsburg, but they're probably higher. Only 2 towns pay more than we do for a land use board secretary. And nothing's going on here. I mean, there's no construction. There's no. I mean, there has been a little bit of an uptick with some of the stores by the Phillipsburg Mall, but not much. I mean, there's definitely. I don't know when a new home has been built. It's probably been several years. Tax is too high, and somebody came to me after the last meeting and said, "You don't have to worry about people moving." I keep on saying people are going to move to Pennsylvania because, in fact, some of our employees live there. But and I don't blame them. It's smart. You pay lower taxes and you get higher wages. It's smart to do that. But I said, and I was concerned, that everybody's going to, take a canoe over the Delaware to get to the Pennsylvania side and pay lower taxes. And the fellow said to me, you don't have to worry about that. People can't sell their house. The taxes are high and the prices go down. So where are you going to go with that? You're gonna rest your hat on the fact that people can't move because they can't sell their house? I think that's atrocious. I think we got to do something about these things. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any other comments on some of these items? Bill, do you want to explain the budget a little bit further, where things are at?
Sure. Well, Lorraine was just saying you're down to 4.5%. I didn't get those last second changes. What I had was at 6.9 cents. She was just saying some of the DEA money for the court and things of that nature was what lowered it the other 2.4 cents. But before that, at the 6.9 cents, a large part of the reason for the increase, as Frank was just mentioning, is we lost about $670,000 of court money. That was the main factor. Our taxes are going up at my 6.9 cents. It would have been going up $247,000, which is about 6.43% on a tax dollar basis. Our fund balance is down about $600,000 that we're anticipating as revenue. Our overall fund balance dropped close to $1 million. A lot of that was we were using more fund balance last year to keep taxes as low as we could in that budget, and we were short on the court revenue last year also from what we anticipated. We were down about $127,000 from what we budgeted or what we realized from one year to the next, which was down markedly from the year before that also, and now we're anticipating zero.
Fund balances in generic terms surplus.
Surplus and fund balance are interchangeable, yes. We offset those large losses by, you reduced your operating expenditures from what I had, the budget I had, $450,000. You decreased your capital expenditures, $313,000. And we decreased deferred charge expenditures, $94,000. Most of that, we're paying $90,000 a year for the lawsuit settlement. We had 2 years left, but you just canceled the remainder of the balance of $165,000. So roughly all but $13,000 of that balance was canceled, and we won't have to pay that again next year. So that was the main reasons for your increase. I was looking at your rate. What I had, again, at the 6.9 cents, and it's going to be lower if you are in agreement with the rate where Lorraine's at. But I was at, the local rate would be, the local rate, just the municipal rate, would be 1.142 cents. In 2011, it was 1.14 cents. So you went up 3 cents over 4 years on the local rate. So you did a very good job on the local rate, and a large portion of that was obviously the red light money, which was a godsend, not for people paying it, but when we had to fund all the tax appeals that came through, we lost close to $1.3 million in tax appeals, which really hurt us, which we still have to pay over 7 years, and we're budgeting $165,000 the first of the 7 payments. It definitely could have been worse. So again, it's a bleak situation. We started out way worse. You've got it down to a somewhat manageable level. Obviously, nobody wants any tax increase. But without making further expenditure cuts, we feel like we've anticipated all the revenue that we can, without robbing Peter to pay Paul going through future years. We're anticipating the revenues that we think will be regenerated in the coming years for a sustainable basis. So it's what the level of expenditures you want to fund drives the tax rate.
So if we were to look at future costs, which would be salaries, for next year, if you there was no majority support for reduction of labor in either of the larger between the DPW and the police department, what are the anticipated savings versus this year and next? Like, what would they be from this year to next year as far as future savings for us? Do you know that?
I think
Besides the $90,000 for the funding for the litigation that's no longer there, there weren't a lot of long-term savings. Our capital reductions were 1 year only.
Mm-hmm.
There were no workforce reductions, so you have nothing going forward. That's going to continue to build. The revenue may possibly increase if that position comes to its fruition, and we are able to realize that revenue. But most of the cuts were one-time cuts.
So if salaries aren't touched, then this is the same problem next year.
Okay. Every tax point is $35,000 approximately also, just to figure out.
Okay.
So at the 4.5 cents that we're down to now, that's about $76 a year for the average value home. The average value home is about $168,400. It's up to $6.34 a month, just in the increase of the local taxes, not including what school and or county may increase.
So, but back to the point, if nothing is done this year, can you anticipate, what would next year's then budget be if a reoccurring cost like a salary is not impacted?
Well, assuming 2% inflation,
Yeah.
Then you would go up that 2%. Our funding isn't going to go up 2%. We're anticipating about the same, regenerating the same amount of fund balance. So you won't get a bump from that. So you would be funding the 2%, assuming an estimated 2% inflation. That would be your increase on the next year's tax bill.
But isn't it kind of hard to predict, especially when we're talking about looking into more shared services?
I'm assuming none of that. I'm assuming the same level of expenses.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would have a large impact on everything.
But the capital cuts, they're one-time hits, so next year, that wouldn't be realized as far as,
Well, he's talking capital, that's the deferred charges. Yes, we still have 6 more years of the 165,000 a year, which is in the base of this budget. But yes, the capital, if this is a low year that you're skipping some major expenditures, you should have a 5-year capital plan, and we know how much we want to slot for capital each year. But yes, it is $300,000 lower than last year's capital.
Yeah, we kind of had a 5-year plan and we just blew the hell out of it.
okay, so, with that being said, this budget would be a one-time, that 4% increase would not still cover, though, next year would potentially go up 4% again. That's what I'm trying to.
It could go up more than that if you increase the 2% for operating expenses and you also increase capital back $300,000.
Yeah, and with negotiated salary increases, that eats up your cost right there.
Yes. Obviously we can't afford it, but the 2% tax cap levy law with the banking, we have $570,000 in tax cap bank that you could statutorily meet that, but the cost of that obviously would have to be borne by the taxpayers.
So really, unless something is done with reoccurring costs, this is a one-time fix. Well, it's not even a fix.
We'll be in the same situation next year.
And the year after that, you can only go so much until you've completely
Use up the bank.
Yeah, until you don't have anything left as far as a.
We do think that our surplus usage, as long as it stays as low as it was this year, that should level off, that we should regenerate hopefully as much as we use. We won't have any more big dips hopefully in our surplus rate. So we should be using that as any sort of level.
And again, there should be some new assessments coming through as development in the commercial area occurs. So it's hard to predict, actually, if it's going to be the same or not, because there are going to be some things that may change.
Obviously, new ratables is always a panacea. Unfortunately, the last 4 or 5 years, ratables have dropped.
Right, but
for you, they stayed fairly level.
Once a new thing coming in, and the other one is
So we're not gaining anything.
that's on the land. That it's what they're paying.
And I know what you're
So
saying.
there's things out there. It's just a matter of us finding them.
Yes, obviously that would help. What we have to watch, though, is you have a fairly large commercial base, and if the economy stays relatively poor or average, that's where you got whacked with the majority of your appeals last time for the $1.3 million.
Right, now I don't anticipate appeals from you,
But we can only. I'm just going off of what we know, and what we know is that.
Maybe I'm a little more of an optimist. That I'm not going to be a pessimist in terms of the fact that there are things that are out there. It's a matter of us looking for them and getting them, to be able to utilize them. But if you want to take the view that, well, this is the way it is, and there's nothing that can be done, and this is just the way it is, well, to me, that's very negative.
Well,
I refuse to think that way.
I'm not trying to think negative. I'm just saying that if we look at, if our ratables and everything, if nothing changes for the better or the worse, it's still the same predicament that we're in.
That's possible, but I feel it's going to change for the better because there's so many variables out there right now that if any of them come through the way we anticipate, it's going to help.
Well,
I understand what you're saying, but there's just so much out there that hasn't totally been explored yet. To be able to be so, it's not going to change.
I mean, the only thing that I see on the horizon are a potential few, I mean, the problem is that the wheels of government seem to take forever. If we try to do we had a shared service agreement done with Greenwich Township Court that was done months ago, and the state has held it up until June. So for us to think that we're going to be able to do any other type of shared service and be able to anticipate those savings, I don't think is unfortunately not realistic.
I think the court was more difficult because it had to go before a particular section with the judge and everything to get approval. And that's really what dragged things out. But I do believe the other, if we do shared services for other areas, that it won't be as complicated.
I don't know.
Could be more.
Well, so here we are.
All right, so should I make a motion
Well,
to reduce our budget?
again, procedurally, let me just, we do have to make a motion to introduce the budget, but I guess, Bill, and I'll defer to you on this, or you had the budget, that was the 6.5% budget.
Well, I would go by what Lorraine gave me.
So would be the motion to introduce that budget with those amendments? Is
Yes.
that what we would do?
Yes.
Okay.
$6 and some cents a month.
Which brings it down to what?
4.5 increase.
So I guess, Mary, we'd be looking for a motion to introduce the 2015 budget as amended with the list recited by our CFO, which brings the increase down to 4.5 cents.
And I move that.
And it'll be at the second, any further discussion, and then go from there.
I need a second.
Does this include the write-off?
I'll second that, Mary.
Okay. Becker?
Well,
No.
let's have this, we need discussion. I think we should see if there's any further discussion.
Discussion? Is there any discussion?
Sal, there's been a motion and a second on the budget. This is the time for any additional discussion here at the council. Anything else you want to talk about?
There'll be, with this budget, there'll be no layoffs.
Correct,
That's correct.
correct.
I'd just like to state that this, as much as I don't want to do this, it seems like a Band-Aid on a bleeding wound, but it's compromised from where we started. We started out at what, 20-some cents? 20, 21 or whatever. We're down to 4.5. As I said, it is a Band-Aid. I agree with the mayor. This is a temporary fix. We need to find a long-term solution to the problem, the ratables. We either need to increase the ratables or this is just going to keep reoccurring. And as I said, it's a Band-Aid for now at best.
All right. There's a motion and there's a second.
Becker?
No.
Scott?
Yes.
Van Loo?
Yes.
Angeli?
You said no. No. Oh, Becker said no. I thought the mayor did.
Scott said yes, I said yes. What do you say?
Well, there's no layoffs, but we can't do no capital projects. Yes.
No.
So, Bill, we'll be advertising the budget to be a public hearing.
We're advertising the budget in the March 27th issue of the Express Times, and we will have a hearing on the budget on April 21st.
Okay, so for the benefit of the public, tonight is introduction only. The budget itself, their copies will be available. Public hearing will be 21st.
April 21st.
At that time, anybody here and anybody else in the township who wants to comment about the budget, that'll be the public hearing date.
All right.
I move that we take these 5 resolutions.
The resolution on the fifth one, I think, is a typo. I think it should say temporary sewer budget.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Is there a motion with that correction?
I'll make it.
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, Becker?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
Van Loo? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Yes. We have no ordinances. First,
You want to introduce that by title?
yes.
Guys. I had circulated it's my fault, actually. I gave you guys the draft ordinance changes last month for the background check.
Right.
There was one additional change that the mayor and you had both wanted. I thought we'd already introduced that first reading, so I was going to have you guys adopt it after the public hearing. I didn't realize we had tabled it. So why don't we introduce the ordinance tonight by title only, the ordinance to amend the background check ordinance.
Folks, could we be a little quiet? Thank you.
Guys, yes, so that we can have it by second reading by the next meeting.
I'll move that.
And it'll be, and we're going to add to that, the one additional change would be that if somebody already has an existing background check within the past 5 years, if the police chief is satisfied with that check, they won't have to go through it again. That will be the one other addition to that. So if somebody wants to make a motion to
I'll
introduce
move that by title.
I'll second that.
Wanda, do we have to get that?
You'll have to get it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so Becker?
I'm not even sure what I heard there.
It's the background check. Remember we tabled?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
so
sorry.
whatever you want on the background check, I agree with.
Yes.
Becker, you say yes, Slack?
Yes.
Yes.
Van Loo? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motions to hire AB Paving Seal Coating to sweep the curb lines in Shimer Manor, Parkside, Huntington, Alpha Lawn Annex for the sum of $4,050 and any additional sweeping at a rate of $98 an hour.
And also, what about the motion to participate in the joint meeting with the
Oh yeah, motion to participate in a joint meeting with Lopakong Township. And also I have a motion to approve the Huntington Volunteer Fire Department status for Nicholas Osgar. So I have three motions.
I will move them.
I'll second them.
Okay. Becker?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
Van Loo? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay, public comment. If there's any general public comment, please sign in, state your name for the record. And, yep, go ahead, sir, you're first.
Sign in on what?
You know, it's, Charlie, it's right behind there, yeah, sorry.
Sign in first, or?
You can do it when you come up, that's fine.
I don't use it. This is the only thing I use it for. Anyway.
Okay.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I'm Charles Asbury, 245 County Road 627 down in Finesville. Along that Musconetcong. Mayor Kern, I appreciate you sending me the copy of the presentation from last meeting. I found that it appeared on the website about the same time you sent it, but I appreciate you responding. Bottom line is, I'm tired, and I bet a number of other people here are tired of being the 26th most expensive township to live in this state out of 565 municipalities. And I think it's your job as a council to figure out how to do something about that. I heard a fine presentation by Chief Greenmeyer here, but I want to point out, I think we can't afford that kind of professionalism, and we need to figure out how to do things more efficiently, maybe by using state police. Why can't we do that?
They no longer take on municipalities. But that's why.
Okay, then we maybe need to figure out how to go to court to get them to police 22, because what I heard Mr. Greenmeyer say is the majority of our activity relates to 22. So what we are doing is supporting the big box stores and the people along there taking care of their crime at our expense. I also heard him say, and you people agree, that our township, relatively speaking, and the people in the township are relatively quiet. And we don't need that kind of policing, except for the fact that for some reason we need to take on other people's problems. And so I think you need to look creatively at how to deal with that. I look at the numbers, I look at the charts, and I see that fully 50% of our expenses in here are the salaries and benefits of the people that work for the township. I'm not disagreeing that that's not a good idea, but I know that the biggest one, 2/3 of that, is the police, which means 37.5% of our entire budget is related to the police. And that's the big one. There's another big gorilla in the other room that we need to deal with, and that's the people over at the school board that overtaxed us for 10 years and now are spending about a huge amount of money on solar panels while the cost of oil goes down. But that's somebody else. You people have your own gorillas here to deal with. And if I take that 37% of the budget and I add in the expenses of the facilities downstairs and the gas and oil and the vehicles and everything else that goes into policing, I bet we're right back up to a full 50% of our budget relates to one big thing, which I just learned from the chief, is because we're supporting all the businesses on 22 as opposed to us. We're a quiet little township except for them. We need some creativity from you folks to figure out how to fix that. If it need, and that's a long-term situation, okay? And the result of that huge number that we have in this township is our property values are going down like crazy, and indeed, all of us would like to move out for that reason and have difficulty. I'm going to lose my shirt, but I'm going to sell and get out of here soon because you're killing me. I'm done.
Any other public comment?
Hi, Michelle Clement, 31 Creek Road. I just have to say, and Mary Van Loo, I'm sure you're a lovely person, but I was so distressed when you were saying that you are an optimist and expecting things to come through, because that's not how you can run a business, and the town is a business. Until something's a done deal and the savings are on the table and marked, you can't count that. So we need to not say we've got a couple ideas that are brewing. We need to keep looking for new ideas until things are completed and finished, and helping us to bring in more revenue if we can't cut expenses more than this. I mean, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't say, oh, we're going to come up with the same problem next year, but I have faith that we've got a couple of things in the works. We're all counting on all of you to come up with creative ways to either bring in revenue or reduce expenses. And I count on the police, who have done a wonderful job for me personally, because I had a lot of break-ins when I first moved in, to also be part of the community and working with us on this, but everyone. And I appreciate pessimism and being a person, or optimism and being a person who's looking up and looking for the best. But right now, with a budget like this, that just doesn't cut it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment?
Tony Catanzaro again. 102 Victory Avenue. I'd like to address the public.
No,
Tax
sir.
appeal, tax appeal, tax appeal. 4%, 4 cents, cut. We're tired of it. I'm only in this town 4 years. My taxes went from $5,600 to $7,800. What's going on in this town? That's why I'm here. The police are wonderful. They've been to my house. We had a fire in our shed with the Huntington Fire Department. I'm not against the police. I'm not against the public works. But even the sewer bill, I pay $800 a year in a sewer bill on top of $7,600. Something is wrong. I have a 3-bedroom ranch. It's 1,300 square feet. Something is wrong. I used to live in Clinton Township. I had 5 acres and a 2,400 square foot barn and a 4-bedroom colonial. I paid $9,000. Where does this? It's a blue ribbon school district in Clinton Township. Something's got to be done. It's enraging. The word is enraging to hear you people spend our money like this. Mr. Becker, I applaud you. Mayor, I applaud you.
Harry Fleming, 312 Victory Avenue. I came before this council lots of times about the sewer. Seems like every time you need money, our sewer goes up. Mr. Becker, how much is your sewer bill?
Nothing. I live in the south end of
Slack?
town.
0.
Mrs. Van Loo?
For sewer?
Yeah.
But for the wells,
South?
the electric.
Oh, my sewer bill runs,
Nothing.
wait a minute, it runs a lot.
Oh, you pay, you
Have
pay
to
public
have it
sewer?
pumped out.
Oh, yeah?
Constantly.
You don't pay to the township like we pay. Now, years ago, we had an infiltration problem, we were told. So, Mary, I think you were the mayor. Everything in Parkside got relined. This was supposed to bring our bills down, okay?
It held them steady.
It didn't bring our bills down. Did not, okay?
It did.
Then I was told that we had 5 guys on the road department. One of them was paid out of our sewer department. Well, we have 4 guys now, okay? I think they do a fabulous job. You want to get rid of them? I don't think so. You know, our money's going to these guys. You pay nothing. We pay for it. I think it really stinks. I also asked about bypass meters. For us that use water to spray our cars, water our lawns, we pay for that going down the sewer. We're not allowed to do that. Other towns you can do that in. I think it's about time you look into letting us do that, because we're footing a lot of the bill in this township, and you people are paying nothing down the lower end. Let's get it straightened out here a little bit and quit ramming it up our rear ends with raising our sewer bill every time you need money. You know, you buy flags around the town to hang. How much did they cost us? Did we need them? No. Look at this building. Did we need this? No. You know, it's time to straighten out Shimer School. Never got an answer on how much that costs us to operate every year. Do something with that. Instead of picking on the employees that do a great job in this town. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Jerry Kern. I'd first like to thank the chief for his presentation. I think that was great. And thank Frank again for his comments. There's not enough I can say up here tonight about Frank. I supported him when he was running, and it's the best thing I ever did. He's the most stand-up person I've ever met. He's done more on this council than anyone I've ever seen in the 10 years I've been coming here. He spends the time and due diligence to do his homework at home, and he brings it all here, just to be transparent and the stand-up guy he is. Be a lot more like him, because this town is in big trouble. We've done nothing here tonight but kick the damn can down the road. That's all we ever do. When are you people going to wake up and listen to the residents what's going on? Yes, it would be nice to afford all these nice fancy things that we have. At home, I have to make decisions because I can't afford them. So I take less because I can't have the new car, so I drive the old one. But here, it seems we always just raise taxes and we can keep going ahead. Well, it's ending. It needs to end. It's going to end whether you want it to or not. There's no choice. So what do? We kick the can down the road. Things have to change. We can't afford this no more. The chief gave a great presentation. The only thing was left out was in all the calculations. We may have a lot of the things, I don't dispute what his numbers are in crime and things like that. That may very well be. But one thing that was left out is to have these police officers with this population, we pay a lot more per resident to have the police. That's the real number we need to see. What are we paying per resident, per police officer? Because it's a lot more than other towns, and we cannot afford it. Whether we need it or not, we can't afford it. Like home, I do without. My insurance company calls me, they're going to raise my insurance rate. What do? I take things off to keep it the same. Because maybe I'm the only one in this town that's not getting raises, but I guess everyone else is, because I can't keep affording this. And you better start making some harder decisions. And again, I applaud the mayor and Mr. Becker for actually having a backbone to get things that need to be done. Thank you.
My name is Trish Becker. I'm Frank Becker's wife, and I live down in the southern end of the township. It's always difficult for me to make public comment at these meetings because a lot of people just sort of combine Frank and I together. But I'm a resident here, and I'm an independent thinker, and I want to comment on what I observed tonight. The chief knows that I'm a friend of the chief and the police. I respect them. There are quite a few police officers who I have the utmost respect for, okay? And I've made calls to the police. I don't think I'm going to be doing that in the future as a result of tonight's meeting. But that's my personal decision. What I observed tonight was that this council, with the exception of my husband, and the mayor saw that there were 3 votes, so he went along with my husband to vote no on the budget. But the rest of the council members gave in to a special interest group here in our township. They were not elected by the 12.625 police officers that we have serving our town. They were elected by the so many hundreds of people who vote in our township. And I think you did those people a big injustice tonight. Okay? That's my point of view. I think that you really didn't do the right thing. You didn't step up and make the tough decisions. You are kicking this thing down the road. And I can only hope that people who, a lot of these people left tonight after the budget was introduced. They didn't even stay to give you their public comment. They felt like it was a complete waste of time and they left. And that's sad. That's really, really sad. I don't think you're doing the right job here. I'm very disappointed. And a couple of meetings ago, there was an officer here. I felt like when he gave a public comment, he had intimidated this council a bit. And after he made his public comment, I sort of called him on that because that was my impression. I think that that has happened here. And it's sad. It's a sad day for our township.
Any other public comment?
Jim McVeigh, 530 Carpentersville Road. Mr. Mayor, what is the percentage of increase they're going to get in their pay this year?
For who?
For the police officers?
2%.
2%, okay. My wife works for Hunter Medical Center. She's been there for a long time, but in 5 years, she's got 1%. 5 years, 1%. Maybe we need to sit back and people got to start taking cuts instead of getting the increase every year. We're getting an increase in taxes, but we're not. Somebody needs to keep their pay at bay. Everybody's getting a lot of money. Maybe we could put things in check that way. I mean, I'm a local contractor and people coming into the community stealing our work from Pennsylvania. I have to cut my pay. I have to cut my rate to get jobs anymore. People, oh no, this guy's bidding it at this. I mean, I'm cutting my salary and paying higher taxes, and it's killing us.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Sorry.
Enrique Hernandez, 301 River Road. Every time I spoke out in the past, I wanted to hear from the police and hear what their position was. And I also echo the gratitude to the chief for his presentation and to give us an objective view of what our patrol requirements are. I must say that the concessions that I heard from the police were flat out disappointing. If they're not going to take their buyback of their time, but they still can take their vacation, it's zero benefit to the town. If they say they're going to lower the budget for overtime, but if in fact overtime is needed and the town then has to come up with more money, there's been no concession. It's just a game. If you say, look, overtime will be 50,000, and no matter what the policing needs are, and if the policing needs are greater, then the police is going to do that extra time for free, then that's a real concession. The other thing I wanted to say is that remember that anytime someone who's in a fixed income, and I'm not, but I'm going to talk about them, gets a tax increase, they just took a pay cut because they have less disposable income. So the citizens, the residents of this town will be taking a pay cut. That means that employees also should be taking a pay cut. That's really, and I don't think it should be a lot, it should be a little bit, but I think the pain has to be shared equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none. Move on to old business. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Real quick before we adjourn, I just would like to acknowledge one public comment. I would implore all residents to always speak and not to be intimidated. Our police officers are some of the most professional individuals, whether or not I agree with their staffing levels or whatever that may be. I know that they're not going to target me or anyone else, so I would just implore you to please speak your mind. These gentlemen are not going to be running your license plate just because you said they make too much money. I can assure you that. So I just wanted to put that out there. They will put that, they know where you're coming from because, they pay taxes too. So just understand that. With that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, you didn't let me move it. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, I'm on.